MPC Online's quizzes have statistics that you can use to see which questions are doing a good job and which questions might need some work. Log into your course as the teacher and then click on the quiz that you care about. Then come to Quiz Administration, Results, and Statistics. On this statistics page, the options you choose depend upon the nature of the quiz you gave. This quiz was taken in spring 14 by our Cottle 2 students. They could take the quiz as many times as they wanted. The quiz had 5 questions that were randomly chosen from a question bank of 16 questions. So I'm interested not in their highest grade attempt, but I'm interested in that first attempt. Was the question fair the first time they looked at it, rather than as they took it multiple times, were they able to finally figure out what this knuckle-headed question was asking? So here we have some of the statistics. There were 16 first attempts at the quiz and 46 total attempts. So students took the quiz multiple times. On the first attempt, they got a 74% on average. The average of all their attempts was an 80. On their last attempt was a 91. So students improved from the first time to the last time. That's what you would expect. I don't understand all the numbers in here. This one, for instance, coefficient of internal consistency. This looks suspicious, doesn't it, that it's a negative number? Well, let me read what it says in the documentation for quizzes. For the coefficient, it is impossible to get internal consistency much above 90%. Anything above 75 is satisfactory. If the value is below 64, the test as a whole is unsatisfactory and remedial measures should be considered. So it does not like my quiz, and sure enough, there are a couple of questions that have problems with the quiz, a couple of questions that are a problem on this quiz. Although I think what's really going on is the sample size was so small that I think just a couple of bad answers lead to probably a misleading number here. Let's scroll on down and look a little bit more. These numbers 1 through 5, these represent the 5 questions that students took, although they're not specific questions, because every time you took it, you got questions in a different order. Question number 1 was not the same for anybody, except by random chance. To see all the actual questions, you have to click on this last random question, and then it displays all of the actual questions that were taken. The first question was a matching question. There was a breadcrumb question, a course calendar question, a question about licensing fees, etc. And what this is showing you is that this breadcrumb question was tried 3 times. That is, randomly among the 46 attempts, 3 times this appeared on a quiz. This question, this matching question, appeared on 7 quizzes. This appeared on 7 quizzes. This appeared on 5 quizzes. This next column, the facility index, is how hard or easy the question is. 100% of the 7 attempts were correct. So this was a very easy question for everyone. Here, only 40% of the 5 questions were correct. Only 2 of 5 people got this right. This was a much harder question. The column that I find most fascinating, though, is this discrimination index column. Let me read you from the documentation what it says. The discrimination index is the correlation between the weighted scores on the question and those on the rest of the test. It indicates how effective the question is at sorting out able students from those who are less able. So it's looking for questions where students who did well on the rest of the quiz did well on that question, and where the students who did poorly on the rest of the quiz did poorly on this question. That's a question that is successfully discriminating the more able from the less able students. And those questions get high numbers. Anything above 50 is doing a very good job of discriminating. Anything from 30 to 50 is an average discrimination. Anything from 0 to 30 is not very good. And their statistics suggest that if the number is below 0, if it's negative, it's probably an invalid question. And so here we have a huge red flag. This question is a negative 57.5. We better look at this question and see what's going on. The statistics suggest that this question is just not valid. So open the question here in a new tab, and I'll scroll down. The question is, to activate the editing privileges of a teacher, the first step is to, and here are the 4 possible answers. Students only chose answers 1 or 2. The first answer, click the Turn Editing On button was the correct answer according to this quiz, and 3 people chose it. The next answer, log into your course, was chosen by 1 person, and it was deemed to be the wrong answer. Well, but let's think about that for a minute. The first step that a teacher has to do, well, you need to log in as a teacher. So I can completely understand why someone would have chosen that answer, even though this answer is deemed the correct one. And in fact, that's exactly what happened. Is some student who did extremely well on the rest of the quiz picked that other quite reasonable answer. It was wrong, and therefore this question has been flagged as probably being invalid. And I tell you what, it's right. These statistics are right. This question needs to be changed. That is an unacceptable answer. The next column I want to talk about is this discriminative efficiency. I don't know exactly what this means when I read the explanation. What it says is that questions. Well, here, let me just read it to you. An item which is either very easy or very difficult cannot discriminate between students of different ability, because most of them get the same score on that question. So questions like these, where everyone scored 100%, the question cannot be a good discriminative question. Likewise, if there are questions that got extremely low scores, they're not going to do any good at discriminative efficiency. So they're looking instead for questions where the range is between 30 and 70% typically. Those are the questions that are the best at discriminating, and we have a number of those kinds of questions right through here. It says that the discrimination efficiency will very rarely approach 100%, but values in excess of 50 should be achievable. Well, our sample size is so small, we have a few at 100. And of course, our invalid question is a big negative. But here's one. It's under 50, and that makes me wonder, is there something wrong with this question? I'll right-click it, open it in a new tab. And let's scroll down and see what's going on with this question. Editing your profile is an important community building activity for your online classroom. Well, that's true because it's in editing your profile that you put your photo in, and photos are important in online classes. And in fact, that's true is the right answer, and 3 people picked that. But 1 person picked no, not true. And probably that person did reasonably well on the rest of the quiz. So what's wrong here? Well, I think having this be flagged tells me maybe there's a problem with this question. And I think maybe this question would be better if it said editing your profile to upload a photo is an important community building activity. I think maybe that's a better question that gets at what you're really getting at in this question. So I think that once again, these statistics have found a question that could be improved. These quiz statistics are not perfect. I have used them on quizzes put in real classes where there was a large sample size, and I have seen it find questions that it thought were invalid where the question was perfectly fine. There was one specific one. There were 33 people who answered the question. 32 of them got it right. It was the definition of a word, and the 33rd person just got it wrong. And presumably that 33rd person did well on the rest of the test, rest of the quiz, and obviously got that one question wrong. So it thought that maybe the question was not valid, and I would disagree with it. So you can't just look at the statistics here to make your decisions about whether the quiz is any good or not. With that said, I would have loved to have these kinds of statistics for quizzes that I have given in classes. Wouldn't you like to know which questions are really having an effect and which questions are these kinds of questions that need to be fixed up? And look at these questions. Everybody got them right. It's good that students get some points, but these questions really aren't helping determine which are the more able and which are the less able students. Well, good stuff, I think.